the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our Monday, February 5th school board meeting, and we'll start with our agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. You do have two amendments to the agenda. You have some additional professional leave and field trip requests under Mrs. Schoeneman's section, Roman numeral 7D, 1 and 2.
Move to approve the revised agenda.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin. Second by Dr. Malco. Any discussions or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Is there any correspondence, Mrs. Kelly?
There is not this evening, Mrs.
All right.
Seuss.
We'll run right into our liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. I have nothing to report, no activity and no action.
Mrs. Kelly.
I have nothing this evening. My committees don't meet until later in the month.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Dr. Malco.
Oh, yes, I do have something to report. Lake Central or next Monday, so I don't have a report from them. Dyer Parks the other night are doing a green tree plastics recycling program. They really want to partner with the schools. So I guess I will give this to you, Mrs. Castaneda, to share. And they don't need to be just Dyer schools. They could be all the schools. And it really is a super way to bring all the community together for a really good goal to, again, recycle the caps and the lids and ultimately make some of those beautiful benches, unless they decide to go another route and design something else. I don't know, but it's a neat idea. So there you go. And thank you, Mrs. Jenna, wherever you are out there, for bringing that tonight. I appreciate it. And the legislative, I thought we had a very, very good meeting with our legislators last Friday? And a lot of important concepts were shared. I think the one thing the legislators went away with, from my perspective, and I haven't really shared this with anyone else, but I believe that they finally understand that to sit in Indianapolis and make a rule that applies the same to everybody is not good sense. It's not good common sense, because we're all so unique in our various places and locations. That was the one thing that I heard them pick up on, so I thought that was a step in the right direction. And Larry, I think that you have a report about legislation tonight on the agenda, don't you?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. And then that's all I have to share. Thank you.
And for my committees, Dollars for Scholars, any graduating senior this Wednesday, LGI room 2:30. We will be reviewing how to apply for those scholarships. We turn away nobody. So with that, our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again. Seek board approval for the minutes from our meeting on January 24th. Also seek board approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures you received in your packets last week.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. There are no public comments regarding action items, so we'll move into our official school board business topics regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. For this evening, we're going to kick off our meeting with a special remembrance of bus driver Tina Casey. And to begin that process, I'd like Mrs. Mary Blum to come forward.
I'd like all the bus drivers, aides, to please stand. This is from all of us. Good evening, board members and Dr. Varacco. We'd like to thank Dr. Medlin and Dr. Varacco for helping us honor our coworker and friend Tina Casey. We would like to welcome Tina's dad, Tom, and sister Lori this evening. LC is a very large corporation that loses active employees way too often. We would like to acknowledge the active employees the bus barn has lost over the last 8 years during the school year. Greg Lambert, Sandy Maturo, Wynn Dossel, Joanne Lane, Kathy Frestinger, and the last one, Pat Lucky, who was an aide. Some working as they went through treatment, but showing up and displaying confidence, courage, dedication, and grace every day. Tina was unique, and I'd like to introduce to you Shirley, who was a driver 30-some years ago and recently came back as an aide with the encouragement from Tina. This is Shirley, Tina's best friend.
Thank you. Thank everybody for coming. On December 17th, the Transportation Department lost Tina very suddenly. Tina has the distinction of being one of the 2 drivers who had celebrated 35 years of service with Lake Central. Tina came to Lake Central following in the footsteps of her mom, Maggie Chopla, who was also a longtime driver. Tina began her driving career in 1988 on 25 and went on to drive 64. Tina has over the years kept in touch with many of her kids and all their parents. And Tina would continue to drive had the Lord not taken her home. Tina left behind 2 beloved fur babies, Bam and Belle. The whole transportation department is continuing to look for a permanent home where they can stay together. Tina was my best friend for 31 years. I met her at Lake Central in '92 when I came to be a driver, and we became instant friends. She was my fishing buddy, my traveling buddy, my best friend, my partner in crime. However, we did no crimes. None that was recorded. So I thank you all tonight. Tina will be very, very missed. She made very many friends, and we will all miss her greatly. So, love you, Tina. I'll see you later.
We have a certificate of
Thank you.
for Tina.
Tom and Lori, please.
Just want to present you with the certificate of achievement for 35 years of dedicated service to Lake Central Schools.
Thank you, everybody. Under circumstances, rougher than hell, you'll have to excuse my language, I don't know any better. But under circumstances, Tina loved all of you, so thank you.
She loved her job, she loved her friends, she loved her co-worker friends. Thank you.
Could I add something? I worked with Tina when I was principal at Bibbage School, and she was one of our solid, all of our bus drivers are solid, don't get me wrong. We have great bus drivers. Yes, we do. Oh, yeah. Remember those school bus safety weeks we started celebrating years ago? Yeah, that's why we did it, because you're so good. But Tina had a special way with the students when she had the big bus before she went to the special needs bus, and handled them very well. So she was a great gal and a very personable young lady to work with, and we're sorry for your loss.
Well, I worked 44 years in the steel mill, believe me, I'd rather do that. Nothing wrong with kids or anything. Crawling on a bus loaded with kids just wouldn't be my lifestyle. So thank you again.
Thank you.
For my second item this evening, I wanted to share with the board some information that we've shared before in newsletters and in the student newspaper and so forth regarding weather cancellation. It would have been really timely 2 weeks ago, except we canceled our meeting because of the weather. But they're really come down to about 4 main points. The first is the timing of the decision. And so I just want our community and our board to know that most parents prefer that decision as soon as possible. They really prefer the decision the night before. However, we historically have always tried to actually see the weather conditions materialize, just so, you know, sometimes the forecasters can be wrong, and if they call for something that looks like it could be, you know, hazardous, if it doesn't snow, or if it only snows an inch, then we could have gone to school. And believe me, I hear it from the transplants from the north. Anybody who moves here from Minnesota or Wisconsin, they never fail to let me know that the people up north are laughing at us, that they wouldn't have school if they canceled on a day like this. They'd miss the whole winter. But nonetheless, we generally want to wait until the morning to see snow. So that would be a morning call. With snow, our goal is to make the call by 5:15, so our drivers, many of whom were here tonight, don't have to leave home to get to the bus barn, because that's about when they leave home. They need to be at the bus barn by 10 till or 5 till 6, so they can pull out at 5 or 10 after 6. And so we need to do our best to get that call out at 5:15. We do use a consensus of weather forecasts. We don't just use the Weather Channel. It's my preferred source, but we look at all of the sources. And, you know, for instance, on January 12th, that call for rain and snow mix, and we couldn't tell which way it was going to go. The night before, the window for rain was really lengthy in the middle of the day, and by the time we got back up at 4:30 in the morning, that window had shortened, and they were calling for much more snow. As it turned out, when it turned to rain, it did stay rain longer, but it didn't turn to rain as soon as they said it would the night before. So, you know, we looked decent on our decision on that one. But in the morning of the 12th, both commutes looked like they could be hazardous, and that's what contributed to our decision. We knew it would be messy on the way in, and with the forecast calling for it to turn back to ice or snow in the early afternoon, then we could have both ends of the commute being messy, and that made it not worth it for one day of school. With wind chill, we've stuck to the same standard since I've been superintendent, and this was given to me by Dr. Emmerich when I first came to central office. And so for over 20 years, we've relied on the Lake County Board of Health standard of -20 real feel. And the theory behind that is that -20 real feel, if you're not properly covered, your skin can get frostbite in 10 minutes. And so we know some kids have to wait more than 10 minutes at the bus. So that's what we've done. We've in the past gotten there at -18. But generally, if it's, you know, it's still and it's 5 above 0, it's not going to be anywhere -20, and we need to bundle up and figure out a way to endure it and get on the bus and get to school. The forecasts do better predict wind speed than snowfall. So we've seen over time that they can be more trusted on that. And the other piece is, a lot of people have asked me about 2-hour delays with the wind chill, and usually you're gaining 3, maybe 4 degrees in 2 hours. And so for us, when it comes to just wind chill weather, it's probably going to be an all or nothing. We're not likely to do a 2-hour delay for that. We have done 2-hour delays in the past for fog. We've even done it for snow. So we wouldn't rule it out for that, but not likely for wind chill. So again, we do inspect the roads when it's dicey. We have our chief mechanic drives part of the territory, our director of transportation. I get out there and drive a circle through southern St. John and up through Schererville, and then we do a powwow. Bill talks to his plow guy who is out all night, not just doing schools, but doing businesses. And we'll check with the police to ask if they're seeing any accidents. In some cases, if any of us see an accident, if any of us see the police or fire truck somewhere on the thing. So we have had in the past where we've gotten a heavy snowfall, and the town's had a hard time keeping up. People didn't get their sidewalks shoveled, so even though the snow stopped on the first day that's canceled, we've extended it a day to make sure everything gets cleaned up, in part because we need to get our parking lots cleaned, we need to get our sidewalks ready, but we also have 3/4 or about 72% of our kids ride the bus. We need those sidewalks to be cleared, and so we have, you may remember, we've even asked in the message sometimes if people could get their sidewalks shoveled for our bus riders. So those are some of the other things that go into it. When the weather arrives during the day, it's a lot trickier, mainly because our elementary families, for kindergartners or any student with a special need, may need to be home to meet their children. And so we don't want to drop any young children off early. So we have, on occasion, let the high school go 10 to 15 minutes early to make sure that route is on time for elementary, so that if the elementary goes slow, then only the middle school's a little bit behind. But we generally will never release the elementary or middle school early. And then, a lot of people want to know who makes the final call. Well, the buck generally stops here. I get some support from Sarah. I get support from the transportation director, from Bill, sometimes from police, but we try to do, the best we can, and it's an inexact science. But willing to talk to people if they have concerns or questions about, the criteria. And, like I said, it is our preference to call the night before, but we need to be pretty sure of where we are, because before my time, there was a cancellation, and then it didn't snow at all. And even though I didn't own that decision, I never forgot it, because it was bantered around as a joke for not just weeks, but for years. So it is important that we see some of the weather when it comes to snow. So with that, I take any questions from the board on weather.
Dr. Bracco, I think your design model makes a lot of sense, and you have multiple categories included. Did you receive a lot of questions about the delay?
I have not this year. This year's been pretty pleasant as
Okay.
far as feedback goes.
Okay, just wondering.
But you have to remember, when it's marginal, when it's 4 inches, and that's usually sort of what we're looking at to say, okay, it gets sloppy with 4 inches. You're never going to be more than 60-40 one way or the other.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that want you to forge onward because they don't want to go to school at the end of the year, or they don't want to go on President's Day. So, when it's really looking pretty ugly, people are reasonable. Sometimes, though, when it's in the middle, they want their opinion heard, and we get to hear it.
Well, I think it's good that you start to address it the night before and gather all that data. Because I do remember in past years, many years ago, it was always called in the morning, and it was very chaotic because parents were on their way to drop the kids off to school. So it's good to have that little heads up the night before if we can.
That's our goal. Okay, I want to do a quick legislative update based on what happened last week in the State House. Tomorrow is the halfway point of the short session. Number one on our list here is still Senate Bill 1, mainly the portion of that legislation that deals with retention. The big question for me remains, how expansive will retention become? And so recently we shared with our elected officials, as Dr. Malcolm mentioned, that retention based solely on a one-day test can be unfair to some children. And so we want to be cognizant of that. We think that the criteria for English language learners, people new to our country, being retained, as long as they've had 24 months of exposure to the language in third grade, we believe that's unfair. We believe that students who test for the first time in grade 3 who barely miss and are supposed to be retained, we believe that's unfair. We asked our legislators to consider contingencies for students who barely miss the cut score and students who make dramatic improvement between second grade and third grade, and or third grade and the summer third grade test, because it's still just a one-time test on one day. And so we really don't want to be retaining a lot of students who are right on the verge of passing or who are showing marked improvement in their reading skills. And then we asked them to do a deeper analysis of similar legislation that was in place in other states like Michigan, that after a while they pulled back on it because they didn't believe it was in the best interest of children either. So I will be in Munster with a group of Lake County superintendents on Friday, and we're going to meet with a larger group of elected officials, and hopefully we can drip a little bit of this thinking on them again, and hopefully the bill gets better. It sounds like it's, I mean, it is a priority bill, that's why it's Senate Bill 1, but it's, we just hope that they put a little flexibility for local school districts to make the decision, especially when you think about students who are largely successful who miss this one test. So I'll let it go at that, and we'll continue to fight the fight. We've got half the session yet to get it fixed.
So do you know who the legislators you'll be meeting with on Friday?
Preliminarily, both of ours are going to be there. I don't know the other ones because I'm not as focused on that. But it is a mixture of Republicans and Democrats.
Be more District 1 legislators, is that what we're thinking?
Well, it would be Lake County.
Right. I was thinking District 1 using ISBA as the name, but
Well, it wouldn't be that broad, but it's just going to be Lake County elected officials.
this is the Lake County Superintendent.
Right, just Lake County. Okay, the other piece that I wanted to review quickly is the 1376 limits on referendum voting. They did scale that back somewhat to make it only for capital projects. Capital projects is not as critical if we're forced to go into the fall on that, because you can schedule when you're going to start that project. Rob eloquently shared with our elected officials that eliminating the May opportunity hurts us, because if you're not successful in May, you can cut then before the beginning of the school year. If you don't find out whether you're going to get to keep the money or not until November, you're already in the middle of the year and you've got all your people contracted in and staffed up, and it's hard to do any cost savings until the following summer. So they did pull back on that. That was helpful. We appreciate that. And the other piece I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is this House Bill 1073, cameras in some special needs classrooms. Our legislators continue to indicate they believe teachers will appreciate the protection of having their classroom being observed all the time. I looked at some of the testimony from the subcommittees. I did not see teachers testifying to that. So it will be interesting to see as it progresses. Will some teachers actually come forward and say, yeah, I agree that I appreciate, having the camera on me. And so that's, a piece of it where most people don't want a camera on their workspace 100% of the time. And, Becky has shared with us that for some of our, what we used to call timeout rooms, to be observant, to make sure everything's safe in there is not offensive, but to be monitoring teachers as they do their best every day. I've said it to plenty of people. I think that what those cameras would show is a lot of people scratching their heads saying, man, our teachers have tremendous patience. I'm surprised they didn't remove that child earlier. So I guess when you think about it that way, maybe somebody could learn something valuable from it. But it is offensive to think that all of a sudden they're going to uncover a lot of things happening that shouldn't be to our students. They're precious, and we treat them as such.
So I have a question for you. Maybe you can't answer this, but do you remember years ago when we used to want to go in and film the teachers teaching and kind of use it as a study to see how they're doing?
New teachers had to be filmed. It was part of the
Yeah, and then it
new
became
teacher process.
and then it became a real litigious issue, and we had to stop it because we were filming students. So why would it suddenly be legal? I don't get it. We've never had cameras like that in the classroom.
Well, they make the laws, so they can make anything legal they want to make legal. But if I remember right, the reason it stopped with our new teachers was because they admitted that nobody was looking at them. So we were doing the work, and we would review them and critique with the new teacher, because it is a meaningful way catch yourself standing on one side of the room too much or whatever. But it was, when the people who were supposed to be reviewing them admitted that they weren't, then everyone threw up their hands and said, well, why are we going through some of these gyrations? So well, and then they cut the funding too, so.
Well,
that
and
was
I
the
don't
other
remember
piece.
that part of it. I remember going into case conferences and saying, boy, it would be really nice if we could video this student and get some behaviors. And that was like a big no, so why they would want cameras in the classroom, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense where that's gonna go with parents with special needs students.
Well, the
especially.
legislators who are the authors have indicated that parents are the ones pushing for it.
Maybe 2 or 3 parents?
Well, it might be. It could very well be.
Do you know where that came from, what legislator?
No, but I could research it if.
Like, if you, Bain.
Okay, and then the last item is Dr. Malco has requested to attend the ISBA Artificial Intelligence Workshop on March 15th in Indianapolis. She's seeking reimbursement for mileage only on that trip.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Dr. Medlin, and I will second that. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that the February 6th is off.
Yeah, I didn't seek approval for that.
Okay, it's on the paper, but we're not doing the February 6th. Okay.
All right, and our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I'm seeking your approval for the personnel recommendations.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Malco,
Second?
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions, discussions?
I just happened to notice that, and I'm so sorry, but, and I'm not blaming this on you, please understand that, but again, I notice we've got 6 new parapros, and almost every time we come together, there's a group that we need to hire. So my question would be, I know that I brought it to, I think Becky and I talked about it last year, Mrs. Grimal and Human Resources last year about training for the parapros. Are we doing anything along that line, or anything trying to get a more solid program together for the parapros and for our teachers?
Most of our training for the pairs is done at the building level, so it's specific to the students that they're working with. I feel pretty strongly that we're just victims of the tough job market. I mean, we've had multiple instances where we've hired staff, we've brought them to you for approval, and then they've resigned before they've even started working because their current employer offers them an increase in wages or different hours, or so it's not an easy job. We do support as best we can at the building level. It's just it's a tough job.
Well, and I know, and that's very true what you say, and that's why I'm always asking us to increase the salary for the parapros. But beyond that, you know, I've had teachers talk to me about the parapros and never really know what to do. So if there's a new parapro Monday, they've got to reteach that person the plans, what they need to do, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then if that person retires or resigns in a week, then they've got a new one to come in and reteach, and just not a lot of what I want to say. It's strategic planning, maybe is the best word for it.
Well, they work for the teachers, so the teachers have the right to guide them and tell them what they need to do
Well,
more of.
Absolutely.
And
I think
so-
that's what they're tired of doing repetitively. That's what I've been told.
Okay, well,
Constantly.
then they shouldn't be saying that paras don't know what to do, because that burden does fall on the very people who classroom they're serving.
Well, I'm just telling you what I've been told, so I don't know. I can't explain it, but.
I mean, I think our teachers do an outstanding job of training those paras as they transition in. It's just an unfortunate part of the turnover that consistency throughout the year that we used to have with our employees doesn't seem to be there because we've had people leave mid-year more frequently.
Well, can I ask you some specific questions? Like we used to, and I hate to use that term, but that's the way it is. We used to get all the parapros together and we would do a training. Like when we were so involved with CRIS, we would train them on certain CRIS strategies or how to do an intervention with a student, discipline strategies. Do we ever bring them all together to work on specific issues that would help them in the classroom?
So when I first started, we did do a large training before school started every year. It was a full day training. What we found with that is we were giving a very broad training without many specifics related to the students they were actually working with. So rather than doing that, we allocate time at each building for para training. So our paras who work in our specialized programs, those teachers have an additional half hour with the paras every week that they are able to meet with them and address student issues. Our more resource paras, those teachers have 3 hours. We give everyone 3 hours that they're able to use throughout the school year for additional time outside of the workday. But anytime a teacher comes to us and says, hey, we really need to get a group together, or a principal, we need to get a group together to work on this, we always approve that. It just doing those broad trainings where you touch on a lot of different topics for a brief period of time wasn't really giving our staff the depth. And we found that, our teachers working with students with emotional disabilities needed one set of skills. Our teachers working in academics needed a different set of skills. So that's why we switched to the more specialized training. But it is hard with the revolving door that we have. It's hard to keep up with that. And that's why, again, the one big training at the beginning of the school year wasn't very effective because we had new staff coming in all the time.
No, and I agree with you. One big training is not the way professional learning should be designed, but I know that last year you did bring a group together, when one of the teachers that those parapros together. So I just want to make sure that the appropriate support is there, because I know it's frustrating, for everybody involved, just to make sure that we're doing what we can do. And it sounds like it's more building-based now, as opposed to corporate-wide.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And then for my second item, I'd like to bring up two of our middle school athletic directors, Corey Ordelis and Lisa Huguenard, who are going to give us our winter sports report. They are going to use the screen if anyone wants to relocate. And then you also have a copy of their presentation at your station.
We can share cards,
Yeah. Did I just hit the clicker?
Wow.
You're giving me this,
I don't run one of these.
Oh, there we go. On the side. English teacher, Nanta.
Yeah. I didn't see it. I got the worst eyesight. Anyways, I'm Lisa Huguenard.
And I'm Corey Ordelis. Lori Smith is unfortunately here tonight. She's under the weather.
All right, and this just shows us how many years we've been doing our athletics at our schools and in our corporation. And actually, I didn't update corporation, but that's okay. Clark, we're gonna both present for them. They had 17 7th grade boys and 18 8th grade boys on their teams this year. Jake Felton and Michael Brandner was the 7th grade coach. Ray Clayton and Deborah Clayton were their 8th grade coach. Looks like they had 26 wrestlers, 19 cheerleaders, and wrestling coach was Scott Hinkle and Kim Hinkle, and cheer coach is Jenny Lindholm. Right? Total of 80 kids. And she did that. Okay.
7th grade boys basketball, our conference record was 5-2. 8th grade boys basketball, their conference record was 0-7. Wrestling, their record was 3-4 in the conference, and then cheerleading won first place at the Northwood Championship.
Do you have handouts?
I think Sarah.
And then these would be the finances for Clark up there. If you want to just peruse those numbers, neither one of us could speak too much on those.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. And team pictures. Okay, this is Grimmer. So I had 15 on each team for the 7th and 8th grade boys. My 7th grade coach was Zach Van Hook. My assistant was Milos Pujol. 8th grade, we had Jeff Motter and Louis Grenadier. I'm going to say his name wrong. Grenadius. I can't say it. Grenadius. Wrestling is 23, and we had Shannon Stanley and her husband Joe Stanley joined our team this year. 9 cheerleaders, total of 62 kids, and our cheer coach is Michelle Migret, who's been with us for many years. All right, our standings is 7th grade did not do so well. They were a rough crew to get going, period. 8th grade did very well, 6-1 in conference. They finished 2nd in the conference tournament. Wrestling, again, not so well. They really struggled with winning duels because we didn't have enough for the weight classes. So if you don't have enough to cover, especially those heavy weights, you're not most likely winning your duels, unfortunately.
We had
But
the
we
same
did
issue.
have, kids that were doing well with their duels. Cheer had 2 competitions. They placed 3rd at the Lake Central one and 1st place at the Clinton Central competition. And these are my finances. So what I brought in for gate and concessions and tournaments, and then what we paid out for officials, workers, tournaments, equipment. Basketballs are getting more expensive, by the way. I don't know if anybody's priced a basketball lately. They're like $83. I was like, holy cow. But I had to get some new basketball for the boys, so we had to purchase some of those. But I am getting track uniforms are coming in this week, so yay. Any questions on that? All right. Oh, there are my teams. Okay.
Yeah, let me click. For boys basketball this year, for our 7th grade, we had Danny Cernicrack as our head coach and John Moore as our assistant coach. For 8th grade, Matt Walsh was our head coach and Megan Long is assistant coach. We had 15 boys on both teams as well. For cheer, Cindy Demopoulos has been a cheer coach since maybe 20-some years. We had 9 girls this year as well. And then we had 2 new wrestling coaches. Zach Galvin, he's from Lowell, and you might recognize John Alicia there. I twisted his arm to help us out this year. I'm hoping to twist it one more time for next year. So those are kind of our numbers. We were low on the wrestling team numbers as well, and didn't have a lot of the big weight classes either, which did hurt us as well. Overall, the boys, 7th grade was 4-3 in the conference. They did make it to the conference tournaments, but lost in the the semifinals. 8th grade boys were 1-6 in the conference as well. You can see the wrestling records. It was 2-9, but we did have some good placements at the conference. 6 out of 8 teams. We had 3 third-place finishers, 2 second-place finishers, and 2 conference champions. But again, we did not have the higher weights. Cheer, they got 6th at the Lake Central Cheer Championship and 1st place at the Cascade Middle School Invitational. Up there are the athletic finances for Kaler. You can see over on the left what we took in for gate. And Lisa and I split the basketball tournaments this year for boys, and Lisa and Lori are going to split for girls. So much better of a day. So there's a profit on the side. Over on the right, you can see expenses that we have there. We did buy a new volleyball system, net system, for volleyball and volleyballs, which were costly as well. Luckily, they did a fundraiser that offset just a tad bits. And then next year, boys basketball will get uniforms and new singlets for wrestling. And then there are the 2 basketball teams and our wrestling and cheerleaders.
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
No reflection on what is being done at present, but would you describe the selection process for tryouts? Let's take basketball, for example. The numbers seem very low to me, and I'm trying to compare
We didn't
that.
have large numbers.
Nope.
And that's the same with girls basketball right now, too. Like my girls basketball team, I had 10 girls who came out. There's 10 girls on the team. So the numbers are lower just across the board. Wrestling, we don't cut anybody. I think we started at 28, 23 by the end. Just not getting the numbers these last couple of years. It seems to go back and forth a little bit. We had high 8th grade numbers last year. This year we don't.
Same for me. I mean, they kept all the 15 kids that went out for 8th grade were, that's who came out. 7th
And
grade,
I
there
saw
was a
you had
few-
15 there.
Yeah, there was a few that got cut, but that was because of their grades mostly. Or they didn't show up. They were on my final forms as roster, but they didn't show up. And that's, they ended up cutting themselves. My 8th grade girls, I have 9 8th grade girls right now playing, and
I'm just trying to understand, each area geographically has different situations, but unfortunately, I have grandchildren down in the Indianapolis area, in Westfield, et cetera, and there were many kids coming out after tryouts with tears in their eyes because of the numbers, and they cut.
I think a lot that hurts us in the area is the, like, AAU teams, the travel teams. Most of them are already specializing in softball or in volleyball for the girls.
Well, they have the
and
same
that's-
down there, so.
Yeah, I just think,
Yeah.
and, I don't know, I think that's what's hurting us the most. Cheer's the same. What's the competition cheer team around here called?
Elite, maybe?
Elite. I don't know.
There's
Yeah,
something
I-
else.
I'm not
But I
holding
know,
you
like, the
accountable.
cheer groups,
Yeah.
they really like, nope, you're cheering for us, you're not gonna go cheer for your school, kind of thing. And that's what's killing cheer at the moment.
Okay,
So.
Can they legally do both at the same time, or does that?
No, and it's in the bylaws not to do both,
Right.
because it takes away from practices and takes away from competition. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like this weekend with, we both had tournaments going on this, you had a tournament this weekend?
I have one this
I
weekend.
know, I had one this past weekend, and I was signing transportation forms saying, well, we gotta hurry up and go out to the softball tournament here, or I gotta get my kid to Iowa for softball, or, whatever it was, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
You
They're
know,
doing
and I
other
get it.
things.
I got my little 7-year-old now. He's in wrestling, so we're doing wrestling tournaments. So, but I get it.
Well, one
So.
thing that I've heard, and Howard, I didn't mean to interrupt you, did you have any other comments?
no,
Tony?
I was just listening to the response.
Yeah, one thing that I have heard just from going to ball games and sitting and talking to parents is that there's a much stronger network between the middle schools and the high school as far as collaborating, working with students, and
We've
that's
been working on that for several years to get ours stronger. And that comes a lot from the high school coaches coming down.
Yeah.
I mean, I know boys basketball, we should be a little bit stronger with that because Mlazic was always at games. We rarely see the other ones at the games. And
Hubenthal
and
does
the-
a good job with girls basketball.
And, yeah, he does. And our volleyball coach here at the high school is doing a lot better job, getting more involved with, the coaches and teaching them what to do and working with the girls in camps and so forth. But,
Yeah, I think it takes time for the new coach to get established and get down there, but overall, from what I'm hearing in the crowd, from the parents, very pleased with that networking that's going on, and the coaches really going down to those middle school, or else inviting them up for practices. I've even heard that they practice
yeah,
with them and do
they've been
things.
holding some clinics. Instead of doing a scrimmage, they've been
Yeah.
doing more of a clinic with the teams and the coaches.
Right, like over the weekend, the softball coaches had a softball clinic with the middle school girls, and I thought that was really neat, again, making connections and
connections, yeah.
relationships. So don't beat yourself up too much, because I think it's happening, it just looks a little bit different than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah. I was glad to see that we were able to keep, I think we have 15 or 16 seventh grader girls this year came out for girls basketball, and that's the most I've seen in
Oh.
many years at Grimmer.
Good,
So
good,
that's
good.
exciting to see that on the bench.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they never have touched a basketball, but they're working at it.
That's good, that is good. Yeah, keep up the good work.
Any other questions? All right, thank you both so
Thank you.
much for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And now, on to our Director of Primary Education, Dr. Bracy.
Good evening. I'm seeking approval for the professional leave requests you have in your packets.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mrs. Kelly. Second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Also, I would like to update you on elementary summer school. This year, summer school will be from June 3rd until June 20th. It's 11 days. On those days, the students will be here from 8 until 11 o'clock. It will be held at Coling Elementary in St. John. The focus, as always, is on reading and math, and all students will attend for both of those subjects. Any questions?
Pretty much the same routine
same routine.
Still can't provide transportation.
Correct. No transportation this year.
That was one thing I really focused on the legislators with, and also Mr. Spradlin, is if you want this to be effective, you've got to help us get these kids here.
Correct.
I mean, let's be realistic about this.
Yep. You're right.
So I do have a question. What is the RAT project at Piper?
So the fourth grade high ability teachers, I believe this year, 3 out of 6 of them are doing it. Mr. DeLauder drives down and he picks up these rats for us, and he drives them home, and they're scratching in the cages on the way home. And they do different projects in the classroom with the students. They have to learn how to take care of them and how to feed them and how to make sure they survive. And yeah, Mr. James has been there with a rat on his shoulder, and I don't accept that invitation, unfortunately.
So they're just training them to do.
Well, I'm not the high ability teacher, but from when I was in the classroom, each high ability classroom received 2 rats.
Yes.
This is district-wide, it's not just at Piper.
Yes.
They each received 2 rats. One is fed one way, one is fed another way, and
Yes.
it's looking to see how they grow and so
And they
forth.
grow with the long tails and everything. Yeah, no.
So these are the fourth grade high ability classes.
Correct. I'd rather do plants, but that's okay.
All pellets. Thank you. Our
You're
Director
welcome.
of Secondary Education, Mrs. Schooneman.
Thank you. For my first item, I'm seeking the board's approval for the professional leave requests included in your revised packet.
Move to approve the professional leave requests?
Motion by Dr. Medlin. and
Second?
Second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. For my second item, I am seeking the board's approval for the field trip requests also included in your revised board packet.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mrs. Kelly,
Second?
second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite up Carrie Regan and Todd Smolinski from Lake Central High School. They will be proposing the new courses to the board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Unfortunately, the state has decided to do away with some of our classes at the high school, some of them, a couple of them being pretty popular, including business law and ethics. So we were looking to replace a few of those courses, and we have a couple to present to you or propose to you tonight, including we have management fundamentals, and the business law and ethics class was actually embedded into that, but the problem is we're going from a semester class to a year-long class. The other thing that we've realized is the state is doing away with a lot of our semester classes, which makes it a little bit more challenging to schedule at the high school level. But that's what they're doing, so we have to roll with it. Another class that they're doing away with is merchandising, and that's part of our marketing pathway, but we would like to replace that with digital marketing, and that is it's another class in our digital, our marketing pathway as well for the NLPS or Next Level Programs of Study. Web design is another class that's going away, but we currently have digital apps 1 and 2, and so we're just going to try to push those. If we need to, look into different classes to add to the 25-26 school year, then we'll certainly do that. But we do currently have the digital apps 1 and 2, so we're hoping that we'll beef those up a little bit more with our students to take those. But those are the 2 new classes that we're actually looking to propose, are the management fundamentals and the digital marketing. And then I will turn it
am
over.
so sorry that I have a question, because
No,
I know
please, go
some
ahead.
of my fellow board members just roll their eyes at me, because here she goes again. We are dropping web design?
The state is dropping it, yes.
So
We don't
we-
have a say in it.
So we can't offer it because it would not be approved by them?
Correct, and I will tell you that I requested a waiver. I put in a waiver for 3 of the classes, and the only class that they actually approved for us to continue for the 24-25 school year is sports and entertainment marketing. We're only doing that for next school year, and then that one is going away as well. it's unfortunate because these were some pretty big classes that our students enjoyed. So we did get one waiver, and that was the only one.
So if we would offer them, then they would not be counted by the state as a
Correct.
credit?
We're not getting funding, like CTE funding for the sports and entertainment marketing, but we can still at least offer it for credits for our students for the upcoming school year.
Can you do that with web design?
I
mean,
tried. They denied it, just like business law and ethics.
So you would not get funding, we would not get funding.
Yeah, and I don't think we could count it as a credit through the state if it's not part of our state courses. Mhm.
Right.
They're really limiting what we can offer because they want us to direct students towards what they think will then translate into a job.
And I understand that, but I would think the ones that cut would be,
We were very disappointed, especially, like I said, with business law and ethics. It's still huge. I mean, our students really enjoy that class. But again, I mean, I know it's embedded in this new course, so they'll still get it. But I am waiting on Ivy Tech, though, to see. We have a teacher who teaches it for dual credit currently, but with it being a year long, there's 2 different Ivy Tech courses that we could earn dual credit for. He's already credentialed for Business 201, but we also would be adding 105 in there, and they still have to get back to me to let me know if he could actually teach it. And I'm thinking if he's already credentialed for the higher level, why would we not? But that's not up to me, so, but hopefully I'll hear back from them soon.
I didn't know that the state sat down there and really told us what we had to offer. I didn't know that. It's the
Yeah.
first time I've heard that.
It came to a shock, or as a shock, I should say, to us when we found out that some of those classes were going away.
Especially because the kids like them and enjoy them.
Correct. Yes. It's disappointing. Any other questions for me? All right, I will turn it over to Mr. Smolinski. Thank you.
And I will add that Carrie just went above and beyond and caught that these courses were not going to be offered because it's not like they let us know on a big marquee or anything. So just thank you for your diligence in that and filing for the waivers and staying on top of everything and keeping everything in good shape. And then now Todd as well with his work with the course he's about to propose.
we just have one we like to propose. It's actually in our math department. So it's called Indiana Prime, or Prime Math, and there's a whole lot in the description. There's a whole lot, so I'll just kind of highlight what Prime Math is. But it's a partnership course between the Southern Regional Educational Board and the Indiana DOE. And it's meant for that senior math student. When you fulfill your requirements for math in high school, in Algebra 2, your junior year, most kids will fulfill that their junior year. Their senior year, their options are pre-calc or trig or some of those higher level math courses. Prime Math is kind of that transitional, kind of bridge the gap course for students who may struggle with Algebra 2. So we're looking at kind of our target group for this would be a student who may have gotten a D in Algebra 2 or analytical Algebra 2 students. It's this great opportunity for them to have a 4th year math course where they don't have to go into the pre-calc or trigger statistics and still, like I said, bridge that gap into college where they're going to be ready for their first year of college, specifically with like a credit-bearing math course in college. There's statistics out there, and it is being run in some Indiana districts, but 67% is like the state average, I believe, for students earning that first year credit in math and taking Prime Math and earning a B in high school. That statistic goes up to 77%. So there's been studies. So we just think it's a great opportunity for our students to have that if they so choose to go on to college, and they'll be ready to earn that first credit in math moving forward. So that's Prime Math. It's really designed for that 12th grade student.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
And I've known friends of mine, other people, their kids decide to go into the trades, which is fine, but then they can't pass the math portion to even get into the trades. So this really is like the perfect class for those students as well, that they get that 4th year of math, and it's the math that they need, that Algebra 2.
Exactly,
that
yeah.
is a real determiner whether they're going to be able to go on or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's great.
Yeah.
So will you be kind of guiding students into this? Because I see it talks about between a 400 and a 500 on the math of the SAT. Will you kind of select students, or will it be totally elective?
Well, it's going to be an elective, but we would guide. We kind of like I said, we'd look at our analytical algebra 2 students. If they're interested in college and pursuing that, that student would be a good fit for Prime. Or those who may not feel they're quite ready for the pre-calc, which is the upper level, and kind of struggle in algebra 2, but they're looking for college. Those would be some good students that would kind of fit the mold of what the Prime student is.
All right, thank you.
Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I would like to invite up Kate Clark, English teacher extraordinaire from Lake Central High School. She will be presenting her takeaways from the NCTE National Council of Teachers of English Convention in November. And I won't give away the spoiler, but she was thrilled for multiple reasons to attend this, and we are thrilled right along with her.
Okay, awesome. So I teach multiple English classes and AP Capstone classes here at the high school, and I was lucky enough you guys approved me to go to this English teacher convention back in November. So it's actually a twofer. It's like a back-to-back convention. It happens every single year. So I wanted to tell you guys some of my takeaways. So I know the last time there was a full board meeting, there were kindergarten teachers here who spoke about their national conference. I think it's about the same thing from what I could tell. So basically it's almost like, the conference is almost like a choose your own adventure thing. Like you get to go to the sessions that make most sense to you depending on where you teach or what kinds of students you have. So for myself, I chose a lot of speaking sessions within the conference that dealt with these topics. I went to ones that had information on twice exceptional students, AP and honor students, because that's what I have here, students who have learning disabilities, or other students who are marginalized for various reasons. I was able to go and learn more about how I could reach my students a little bit better, which was really cool. And then also the conference, just in general, talked about a lot of the issues I'm gonna knock that off. A lot of the issues that we're facing, especially in English, but just in education in general right now. So things like book banning, generative AI, which is like ChatGPT, and executive function, which I know the kindergarten teachers talked about as well. Okay, so when you're at the conference, you go to sessions. When the sessions aren't happening, there's this massive exhibit hall that you can walk around and make all sorts of connections when you're in there. So you can connect with other teachers from all over the country, and it's all English teachers, which coming from, maybe it's every state, but it feels like Indiana is very focused on STEM, all the time STEM. To be able to go to this and see people that were excited about English was just amazing. So it was very, very cool, very heartwarming. So yeah, you could connect with other teachers. I was able to speak with companies that seemed to pertain to my career here. There were authors signing editions of their books, and then all sorts of book handouts and freebies and stuff. Okay. The other thing that NCTE offered was they had guest speakers who are famous authors. So this is what you were talking about. So one of the guest speakers was Angie Thomas. She wrote The Hate You Give, which is a really famous and popular book. There was a few other speakers as well. And then Tom Hanks also spoke. So I took the selfie. I know that's goofy, but I wanted you guys to see how close I was able to be. It was amazing. And he was funny and intelligent, but he spoke about teachers, he spoke about Shakespeare. He structured his whole speech to us as a five-act Shakespearean play and broke it. It was amazing. It was so, so cool. So yeah, I think he was looking at me in this picture. So yeah, we had multiple famous authors, including, I know he's more known for acting, but he's written a couple things too. Okay, so that was half of the conference. The other half of the conference was Allen. And honestly, going in, I thought I would like NCTE a lot better. I had been to NCTE before, but it had been a lot of years. Allen, I wasn't sure if I would love it or not, but I was excited, just for the opportunity to do anything new. Allen, I think, became my favorite thing because, so here on the bed in my hotel room, apparently, these are all the books I got for free at NCTE, which was amazing. And it's taking a long time, and I'm in the process of wrapping them up. I'm going to be giving them as gifts to my students, so that'll be fun, I think. So these are the books I got from NCTE, but when you walk into Allen, you're handed a box full of books, and I could barely carry it. And these are all the books that were in my box, and it was incredible. You get to take all these books home, and then the structure of Allen, I can come back to this in a second, but the structure of Allen is actually like you're sitting in a conference room and the authors of most of those books come and speak to you. And they talk about their books and the content and the topics, but then they also, because it's about teaching, they help you translate like how you would use a book like that or those types of topics in your classroom, depending on what kind of classroom you run. So this is what my days at Allen looked like, was, you know, panels of authors, some more famous than others, but still published authors, sitting there and talking to us about their literature and how it works in the classroom. I'll go back to the books because I like looking at them. Okay. So it was a great opportunity. I'm so glad I got to go. I hope you guys will let me go again at some point. It was fantastic. Does anybody have any questions? It was pretty great. It was great. I was so excited about it.
Awesome.
I was. Yeah, it was awesome. The moment I found out Tom Hanks was going to speak, I had a little episode. I was very excited.
I just have to say my son plays basketball with Kate's son, and she's frequently in the bleachers reading or looking at papers or always doing something related to school. So we are lucky to have her here.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
Thank you for choosing us.
And you know, that goes way back, because I remember when she
Yeah.
had somebody in marching band and she'd be sitting in the bleachers with all these color-coded squares.
Oh,
and
yes, yes.
She is
Like a
quite
psychopath.
organized.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. For my next item, I just would like to provide you with an update in regard to the iLearn pilot. I am thrilled to tell you that grades 5 through 8, English and or ELA and math, we are officially registered for the pilot, and we'll be starting that next year. What that looks like, and I've mentioned it a little bit before when the state first came out with it and as we were talking through it, but the pilot consists of 3 checkpoints, formative assessments, throughout the year next year. All schools will be on the new iLearn, the redesign, in 25-26, but again, we will be partaking in the pilot next year. Each checkpoint is about 20 to 25 questions. Right now, the guidance is that, you know, it's untimed, but it should take about 45 minutes. We'll see. We have a seat at the table in terms of providing feedback to the state for their timing, studies, things like that. But, you know, in meeting with the middle schools and the English departments and the math departments, which was fantastic to just be able to have those conversations, what we really pulled from it is, you know, the state aims in this redesign of iLearn to provide us with actionable data. And so something that we get right away that we can do something about. Each checkpoint has a Form B, or they're calling it a second chance test. And so, for instance, if I'm teaching, let's say, 7th grade English, I give the checkpoint within a window. It doesn't have to be the same time as my colleagues. There's a window, very similar to iReady in terms of the window, and they take it in my classroom. So I give the checkpoint. I get the results in 24 hours. And then I can look at that actionable data and I can pull the students who didn't master that skill, or, you know, whatever the data is telling me. And what we think it's going to tell us is it's going to link it right to the standards. I don't think it'll be as specific as the item, but we'll be pretty happy with the standards. That'll be more than what we're seeing right now. But then I can take that group of students, I can reteach, I can do some small group instruction, whatever I'm going to do as the teacher. Then I can give them the Form B, or second chance, and see if they had some growth there. And I can do that with any of the checkpoints, anytime. If I have a student who moves in, and this is for the pilot and the real iLearn redesign that everyone's going to do in 25-26. But if I have new students come in who maybe missed the window for one of the checkpoints, I can give them the Form B and still have that formative assessment data on them. So we're very excited to be participating in this, and to see what kind of actionable data we get, and we're ready to go with it. Any questions about the pilot?
You signed up to be a pilot school, or were you selected? I mean,
We signed up, yep. So the state offers it to anybody. Anybody can opt in. And so we officially, Sarah hit the button last week, filled out the form.
Are there a lot of schools that are doing the pilot?
That I do not know.
So it's good to be out there in the front, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And learning and trying.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then finally, I will just echo Dr. Bracey's summer school information in your packet. The summer school sheet that you have also includes the middle school dates, which are the same as elementary. Middle school, summer school will be held at Clark Middle School this year. And just a reminder, we do rotate the schools, especially now without bus transportation. We will be rotating so that people that live on either side of the area, it'll be closer for them depending on the year.
I'm sorry, I missed that last part. What did you say about rotating?
We'll rotate the schools that summer school is held at so that people have the opportunity to go closer to their home, especially now without the bus transportation.
Thank you. Our Director of Student Services, Mrs. Gramala.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval for the professional leave requests that were included in the packet.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mrs. Kelly. And
Second?
second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And for my second item, I'm going to introduce Mr. Brent Barton and Mr. Matt Williams to talk about our Best Buddies program. Mr. Barton is from Kaler, and Mr. Williams is here at the high school.
Name of the gentleman from Kaler?
Brent Barton.
All right. Good evening. As she said, my name is Matt Williams. I'm here at the high school.
I'm Brenton Barton. I'm at Kaler.
So what Best Buddies is a nonprofit organization dedicated to establishing a global volunteer movement that creates opportunities for one-to-one friendships, integrated employment, leadership development, and inclusive living for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
So for the schools chapters, we focus mainly on one-to-one friendship, building friendships with students with and without disabilities. And we also focus on leadership development. We have officers. Best Buddies is a student-run organization. We're just there to support. We're not there to run it. We also are hoping in the future to start getting some ambassadors, Best Buddies ambassadors, who go around speaking. We'll hold a training here in the district at some point.
So some things we do here at the high school. Right now we have 117 registered members in our chapter. We have 40 one-to-one friendships. And a couple of our goals for this year is to get the school and the community more involved in our chapter. Some examples so far, we've had Miss Davis do a yoga class with us. We have Miss Cowan coming to do a ceramics pinch pot class with us in 2 weeks. And then we are working with P&W Sports to have a Best Buddies night during one of their sporting events. And of course, our community fundraisers. Some of the things we do during our chapter events, we have game nights, we do different crafts, we have different cooking things that we do. We do little sporting events. We have an annual wiffle ball game out here in the Commons. And then, of course, at the end of the year, we always have our Best Buddies prom. There's just a few pictures.
Okay, so at Kaler, we currently have 88 registered members with 25 one-to-one friendships. We also have a goal of trying to get the school organizations at Kaler more involved, and also the community too. One of the things we did this year a lot was supporting Logan's Love, an organization started by a parent of a young student who passed, who was going to be part of Best Buddies at Kaler. They had an autism walk in August. We volunteered there. They were raising money to buy Ben's Blue bags for the local police, and we donated one to them. We also participated in their soon-to-be annual 12 Acts of Kindness initiative. We always do something for Disability Awareness Month to get the school community involved. We encourage staff to attend our events. We do a school-wide inclusion assembly every single year. It's been half since I've been there. and also our fundraisers. Some of the activities we do, we've done a staff scavenger hunt. We also do game nights, crafts. We try to do a community service event every single year. Like one year we did a canned food drive. One year we made blankets for a local cancer center. And then we have an annual end of the year breakfast in which we celebrate the year, sort of recognize some people who've been integral that year for our chapter. And then some more pictures. Clark Best Buddies is new this year. They unfortunately weren't able to be here, but they just started like in the last couple months. They have 93 members, which is huge, especially for the first year. They're about fostering relationships, teaching acceptance and inclusion. They've done that. Want to go?
Yeah, I'll do it. Some of their activities they do are also game days. They did a Valentine's Day bag decorating and an ice cream social. They do karaoke. They've done a leprechaun scavenger hunt, and they are a part of the Best Buddies annual walk. And then there's some of their pictures.
Right now we have 3 chapters, as we talked about already at Lake Central Schools. We are hoping to get more. We're actively working to start chapters at a lot of the elementary schools. And I'd like to see one at Grimmer also if we can.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yes, pictures don't always tell the tale, so to speak. We've seen up there gender equity in terms of participation, more girls than boys, vice versa, or pretty close?
I'd say it's pretty close. When we're talking about peer buddies, the individuals without disabilities who are matched with the individuals with disabilities, tend to be more girls more often, but that changes as the chapter's been there longer.
Okay,
I would say the same with the high school.
yeah.
I'm sorry, who is sponsoring the Clark program?
It is Megan Adams, who is a special education teacher, and then Beth Zemanzik.
Okay.
Is the general education teacher working with her. And we have to give credit to Mr. Graber. He really saw the importance of this and reached out to Best Buddies himself to get the chapter going and then recruited the staff. And they've had a wonderful turnout, as Matt and Brent said, for a first-year program. They really have a lot of students there, so it's been a good thing.
He has a love for that, doesn't he? Yes. You know, and as you're talking about ways to involve the community more, have you thought maybe about presenting at the local chambers? We have 2 of the secretaries out of the 3 communities here.
That's a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. I've done it in the past at no school, but that's a good idea.
Well, that, and there's also Rotary, and I don't know what, a Tri-Kappa. There's all sorts of great opportunities for you. If you need some ideas.
That's one thing, like we said, we want to get the ambassador program started.
Yeah.
We could bring some of the students with
Absolutely.
us. They're going to be more important they speak than we speak. So.
Absolutely. That would be great. That'd be great.
Good point, good point. Yeah.
Perfect. Keep up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Matt and Brent both do an excellent job getting the kids involved, and it's a lot of fun. When they have their meetings here at the high school, they're right outside our office area. There's a Valentine's Day party today. Dr. Veracco likes to play wiffle ball. So it's a great program for our students. So thank you, guys.
Is Dr. Veracco any good at wiffle ball?
I like watching.
Does he win?
Absolutely,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My last item is to talk about extended school year, just following the summer programming trend here. So our dates for ESY this year will be June 3rd through June 28th for our applied skills classes. Those students attend 2 days a week for 5 hours a day. So there's a Monday, Wednesday group and a Tuesday, Thursday group. We do have one hiccup the week of the Juneteenth holiday, so we have to shift kids around because we will not be in session that Wednesday. Our elementary students will be at Homan. Our middle and high school students are usually combined. It's primarily middle school. They will be at Clark this year because of the HVAC work that's going to be going on here at the high school. We will also have some speech services at Coling, so our students who are attending summer school can get their speech services at the same time. And just, I included a reminder here of, for students to attend ESY, we have 3 criteria. They have to meet one of those criteria. So it's that they'll regress without any services during the summer months, that they're at a critical point in skill development, or any other special circumstance, which usually is a prolonged absence for the student, and we want to provide some additional services. ESY has to be recommended by the case conference committee, so it's not just anybody who wants it can sign up. And so we are starting to work on that now, and it's always a good sign when we reach the second semester and we can start talking about summer. So
So that's under the Schuneman.
yes, it's on the summer school document also at the end. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our Director of Facilities, Mr. Ledyard.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. I just have an update today for the board for the capital projects over at Bibbich. Since we last met, we're continuing. We finished all the cabinets in both the 10 classroom and 4 classroom edition. We finished the residence flooring in the bathrooms in the 10 classroom edition. We've started the VCT. We finished that in the 4 classroom today. We'll be starting that in the 10 classroom edition tomorrow. We've passed all the ceiling inspections with the town. Next week, we'll be doing a final coat of paint in the 4 classroom, as well as some plumbing trim out in the 4 classroom. And we'll start putting in the ceiling tiles in the 4 classroom. So going right along. We've also started some work up in the mezzanine for the HVAC renovations as well as pulling some low voltage cables in the existing building as well. So it's going right on schedule so far. We do have an OAC meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll get into greater detail there. Any questions on that?
Very good. I do have a question, but it's not about that. But as you walk in, I don't know what that entrance is called. I don't know, where all the kids come in the morning, where the buses drop off.
What school?
The K building.
Okay, here?
You know, the cracks in the floor there, and I know that we've talked about that.
We're addressing
before.
that this summer.
I mean, that's just part of
That's
the
just,
settling and,
it's cracking at the control joints, what it's supposed to do.
okay, so then you'll have to retile, or,
We'll just fix it this summer with some tile and some joint.
because that is still gonna crack periodically, right? I mean.
Well, we'll put some joint compound in there, hopefully it won't.
Oh, I see, okay. All right, thank you.
As far as the freshman center HVAC renovations, as I told you last time, we're trying to do as much as we can before summer. Since we last met, we've got 2 more air handler units in. They went live here this morning, so we're doing some temperature control on that, and then we're going to start 2 more. So we're going to continue throughout the back of the house, as I said last meeting. Then we're going to, a lot of that stuff you see out front here, we'll have up in the air over spring break. So that continues to go well behind the scenes. Last but not least, Grimmer, we did get an update last week for our missing unit. It looks like it's going to ship the first week of March, so we're hopefully going to have that in our hands before spring break, and we can swap that out. As I said, we do have a temporary unit in there for the kitchen and the back of house that nobody even kind of knows. So that's where we're at with the capital projects.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval for the donations that were included in your board packet.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall. Second. Second by Mrs. Kelly. Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next thing I want to do is go over the funding per ADM. We do this annually right around this time of the year. Included in your board packet was a report that I get from the DOE, and then I play with it and sort it in essence. So this shows, just to remind everybody, that we always talk about the funding that school corporations across the state get from the state, but every school district gets a different amount per kid. It's not across the board even like many people would think. And so in your packet, you've seen this before, but the schools, districts that are kind of in the orangish peach color, those are schools here in the region that we are most often compare ourselves to. The schools shown in gray are charter schools. And so I'm not going to go through all of the schools. You can look at them as at your leisure. I've also noted which school districts have had past operating referendums for additional funding from their taxpayers and which ones have attempted and failed. So just some highlights. The state has continued to put more money into the funding formula in K-12. It was about 7.8 billion 2 years ago, up to 8.2, and now it's 8.8 here in 24. It's a little misleading because they did shift some money from outside the formula into the formula, but for the most part, we are appreciative of the additional funding each year. 42 of the top 49 funded school districts are charter schools. The legislators feel that they need to put more dollars there because they don't get additional property tax dollars from taxpayers, and they are Indiana students, but it is what it is. Specifically here for Lake Central, our funding per student is $6,851 this school year. It's up about 5.25% from last year. We do the 374 traditional public schools and charter schools. We rank 341st in our funding, so we're in the lowest 9%, and we've traditionally been around that point. So we currently get about $523 less per kid than the state average statewide. And so we are fortunate that we are one of those school districts that have had that additional support from our taxpayers through an operating referendum. And then when you look at that detail, the ones that are funded toward the bottom like us are the ones who've had to go and request that additional funding through those alternate means. We don't see that changing. It is pretty much the way of how school finances are going these days. One thing that is alarming that was passed last session is that when you do an operating referendum, you have to proportionally share some of that money with the charter schools, even if those charter schools are not located in your boundaries. So we will cross that bridge. We only have about approximately 25 kids who reside in the Tri-Town area who attend a charter school, even though it might be charter school of the Dunes or wherever. So we would have to, if they opt in to participate in the referendum process, then we would have to share some of the dollars with them. It's a very, very small percentage for us, but that doesn't mean it's not a concern for some of our other neighbors that we're always looking out for as well. That's that. Again, we are 341 out of 374, which is, again, generally where we are. So any questions on any of this data before I move on?
Robin, maybe you mentioned it, because I heard you talking about the gray areas. The beige bars on your graph?
Those.
Beige, like East Porter County, what's that stand for? Like the beige?
Oh, the orange ones are Lake Porter and LaPorte County school districts, ones from around here. Yep. And then some of the other subsequent pages are just some charts and graphs reflecting of the funding. There is a chart in there that shows the 16 school districts in Lake County and how much each one gets per student. And it's interesting that 8 of us are below the average and 8 of us are above the average. Well, not of us above the average, but 8 of our peers are above the average here in this area. So as often is the case, Lake County is often a microcosm of what's going on statewide. And then there's just a line graph there that shows, in essence, the growing trend of how the funding has changed since the state took over in 2009. It is more of a steady line going up kind of proportionately. So not necessarily keeping up with inflation, especially over the last couple of years when inflation's been higher, but it is what it is, and we make ends meet. So any further questions on that before I move on? All right. So now we finished calendar year 2023, and so I'm going to give the quarterly financial report. So you have two legal size sheets at your station. The first one I will talk to you about is if you look at the top left-hand corner, it says 2023 calendar year cash flow for the education fund. So you've seen this before, quarterly. We started the year with about $7 million in our education fund, and we ended the year with about $9.5 million. So we're about $2.5 million to the good if you look in the bottom right-hand corner. Now we always like to be closer to the margin. We're not here to build cash balances, but one of the reasons there's a couple of reasons why it's a little higher right now is we negotiated raises with our teachers union and with our classified staff. Those raises take effect for classified staff took effect in January. For the teachers, that's only 3 months worth of the rates or 4 months worth at their new contract. So our expenditures will continue to be higher into January through there. So we need to have cash on hand to support that. Additionally, we're looking at insurance cost increases here beginning in January, as our employer contribution into the health plan is increasing. We need cash for that. And then looking ahead, which we always try to do, is that when the state passed the funding formula in the budget last session, the long session, we know that, I mentioned we got 5% new money this year. We're only looking at 1 or 2% new money for next school year. So we need to make sure that we held some money here this year in order to be able to still do something for our employees come the fall next year. So we're happy with how we ran this year. In the education fund, again, the education fund is pretty much primarily going for salaries and benefits for our teachers, paraprofessionals, and everyone who's directly related to the classroom instruction. So any questions on this page before I move to the next one? Okay. Well, on the next page is where on the top left it says all operating funds. So in addition to our education fund, we also have our referendum operating money that we get. We have our operations fund, which is for transportation and custodial and facilities maintenance and central office and so forth, technology, not actually classroom-related expenditures. So all those funds really work together now. And so in order to get a more of a true reflection on how the district is operating, I put this together so it takes all those funds, adds them together, and sees how we're doing for the year. So again, very similar. This is a snapshot of how we operated for calendar year 2023. And if you go all the way down to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that we operated about $5.9 million to the good. But also for the same reasons that I mentioned before, those classified raises are taking place here in January, knowing that we need some money again for the fall. We've also shifted some of their expenditures that we traditionally had paid out of our operations fund. We are running through the GEO bond now, and so that frees up money here that we can use then to help support classroom needs. Again, we're happy with where we are, but we're knowing that we'll have some money here to be able to do something in the fall again. So I think it shows that we have a healthy balance. If you look at the very top there, it shows we have about a 25% cash balance for these funds together. It's a good number. I'm very comfortable with that. We've talked before about how in our education fund is mainly payroll. We don't need that much on hand, but when it comes to everything else, you never know when we're going to have a roof leak or a boiler go out or any, sidewalk cracks that need to be, filled. So things happen, and we just need to have cash on hand in order to fix those in a timely need. So we're comfortable with that cash balance, not too high. We're not here to, stockpile the money when we're getting that money from our taxpayers and from the state to educate the kids this year. So any questions on that?
So then by the next quarter, by the first quarter of 24, this average cash balance amount would you guess to
May?
It will be a little bit lower. You know, our education fund, we get money every month from the state, and we have expenditures every month. So it's pretty much a wash. But when it comes to our operating funds, our operating fund and our referendum fund, we get that money twice a year. We get it in through the tax settlement at the end of June and end of December. So your cash balance, your cash on hand at December 31st is always one of your highest it's going to be for the entire year. And then you're using that money, I don't want to say draining it, but you're using it for the next 6 months. So then technically your average of what you have on hand will go down for the next 6 months. But that's how it works. That's the process. So, anything else? All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have no public comments, so we'll move into our board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall?
I have none this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly?
Nor do I, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Medlin?
Nothing, thank you.
Dr. Malco?
Well, I think our sports teams are doing really well, and I wanted to let you know that our, color guard was at TF South one weekend and did a really nice job. I was really proud of them. So, and I know our gymnastics team is doing well, and the cheerleaders are heading to Florida pretty soon, I think later this week. Saw them, yeah, you're a former cheerleader. Oh. I saw them with Valparaiso and Chesterton and Norwood on Sunday, and the girls looked so good. Our girls are so talented. They do a nice job. So I want to wish all of them good luck. So not only do the students represent us well academically, but also with all these opportunities that they participate in and do so well. I'm very, very proud of them. Good teachers, good people, good things.
If you don't mind, our girls basketball is going to regionals on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of wrestlers advanced to semi-state, so good luck to them. All right, with that, we'll move on to Dr. Veraco for board calendar future activities.
So we are back here in 2 weeks, and everybody have a good evening, and let's knock on wood that we don't need to use our weather protocols anytime soon.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.